Hello and welcome to Wondergoal, the soccer betting podcast from the Action Network. I'm Anthony DeBundo, joined as always by BJ Cunningham. Michael Lieboff is out celebrating the Leafs elimination from the NHL playoffs. He's on NHL duty tonight, so we will not have Mr. Lieboff to talk about the Champions League. So the Carlo Ancelotti homerism and defense will not be present on tonight's show, but BJ and I are here to break it down, to discuss the first legs, what we learned from the Champions League, Europa League, Conference League, and what we can expect in this second leg semifinal matchups. We're going to start on Wednesday because I think it's the more exciting matchup. But you have two titans of Europe going at it, Real Madrid and Bayern Munich. The first leg was eerily similar to me to Arsenal and Bayern. When you go back and look at how that match played out, it felt throughout that Bayern was the better team. They had more of the control of the game. They created more of the so-called chances, but Real Madrid created the best chance because of their abilities to play in those transition moments. And, Kim Min-jae gets deked and then gives away a pen, and it's 2-2 going back to Real Madrid, where they seem to never lose. Real Madrid minus 110 on the three-way money line. And Bayern Munich is as high as plus 175 to advance. BJ, you gave out Bayern before the first leg to advance around plus 155, right? Mm-hmm. Coming into the tie, I had some value on Bayern. I did not bet them. And now I have to decide, do I hop in? So kind of what did you learn from the first leg? And are we adding to Bayern? Are we going with the under that's going to lose? Or what's the thought on the second leg of this Champions League matchup?
Yeah, like you said, Bayern was really good in the first leg. And if you're somebody who is holding a Bayern to advance ticket from the first leg, I wouldn't add anything to it. I would just ride it out. But if you're somebody who doesn't have the to advance ticket, I would bet it at plus 175. Bayern did something that City was either unwilling or Pep was just too obsessed with to not do, which is try and attack Real Madrid from wide areas. They constantly were trying to stretch their low block, create space, not necessarily through the middle for people coming through, but in the half spaces. And if you've watched in the first half, Leroy Sané was getting in there time and time again. Same thing with Musiala. They just weren't finishing and they weren't creating the big chance. But if you go through all of the data from the match, Bayern doubled Real Madrid in box entries 20-10. They had double the amount of passes completed in the final third half spaces. It was a very, and that's the thing about Tuchel is obviously in a one-off game setting, he's incredible because he takes whatever your weakness is and he just blitzes it over and over again. And that's what he was trying to do. He was trying to get Real Madrid where they're weakest in the wide areas. And you saw Tchouaméni many times was like, wait, do I go this way? Wait, do I go that way? Like, where am I going to help so we don't get overloaded in wide areas? And Bayern did that very well. Now, I know in the end, they failed to create over one non-penalty expected goal. But again, they were constantly threatening, pinning Real Madrid into their final third. And honestly, I thought their defensive game plan was really good as well. The one chance from Vinicius Jr. is just on a pure mistake. And then, like you said, they got the penalty as well. Outside of those two, Real Madrid took 7 other shots and only created half an expected goal. I thought Bayern came with the same exact approach that they had against Arsenal, which is we're going to play a passive mid-block. We're going to cut off space to the middle. And I thought they did a really, really good job of playing it now. Like I said, they held Real Madrid to 10 box entries. So who's to say they can't go on the road and do this again, right? Like they also didn't really allow Real Madrid to play in transition, even though they were playing from behind for most of the first half. They did a really good job counter-pressing, stopping all of those transition moments so that Real Madrid couldn't do what they do best. And I think there's something to be said about Real Madrid where it's kind of funny. They're really good in scenarios. Like if you look through all the data from La Liga, they're really good playing from behind and also playing with the lead. Like when they have the onus is on them, they kind of get into it and it's like, okay, we got to, they're not a very good pressing team, but they're very, very good when the onus is on them to actually attack and everything like that because they have some of the best players in the world. But from an even game state, they only have about a plus a half expected goal differential per 90 in La Liga, which kind of just emphasizes the point that maybe they're not this elite team that the market thinks they are, right? So that's kind of what we thought coming into the first leg. And after seeing what happened in that first leg, the market kind of still thinks like, okay, we'll downgrade Real Madrid just a little bit, because they have home field advantage. But I think these two teams are pretty even, quite frankly. And I think that plus 175 is a little too high of a price. So, again, if you haven't played Bayern to advance yet, I would play them at plus 175.
Yeah, I think the most interesting thing in the first leg was, Real Madrid came out and tried to put a little bit of pressure on Bayern, similar to what they did to City in the first leg at Real Madrid. And it was very early on. I'm talking like first 10 minutes. And immediately within a minute, Bayern almost scored. Like Sane was in.
Yeah.
And they immediately abandoned that. And when they were out of possession, they did not press much at all after the 10th or so minute. They were pretty passive themselves. I think it's interesting because, look, I bet the under 3. I lost. I would have bet it again. There were 2 penalties, whatever it happens. But I do think it's interesting as you look to the second leg because Bayern Munich, we're expecting Real Madrid to have majority of the possession. The onus is going to be on them to control this game as the home team. Bayern is very comfortable sitting in their defensive shape, and they did it against Arsenal, and I thought they were pretty effective against Arsenal. And I do think it's the best way to counteract Real is to just give them the ball, because if you overcommit yourself, they're so lethal on the break. But Real Madrid themselves aren't going to press when they don't have the possession. So Bayern will get a chance to kind of play their stuff. The question is, though, if Real Madrid does drop back when they're out of possession, how good is Bayern going to be at actually creating chances? Because they did a pretty nice job, I thought, outside of that 15-minute period in the early coming out of halftime. I didn't think Bayern had a ton of chances either that were like high-quality looks. I'd say from like minute 10 to minute 80, outside of that poor stretch that Real had. So I still trust this Real Madrid defense, maybe more than I should. I still believe in the fact that they've been so much better in La Liga this year. And I do think that when either defense is sitting in kind of their rest defense and neither team is pressing as much as you would expect for like this high caliber, Titan match, there's just not as much pressing. It's not like, your Liverpools or your even, to a lesser extent, Dortmund and PSG are doing. You're not going to see as much pressing in this game. And so I think as a result, it does tend to make it more risk averse. And I'm very tempted to play the under, even though I continue to get burned by these Champions League unders. And the goals seem to always come from nothing. But as of right now, I think pre-match, I'm not going to have a bet here. I'm going to put my feet up on the couch and enjoy it and likely not have a wager, as lame as that sounds. If 3 became plus money, I think I would invest just because I think like I said, as whoever is leading, I do trust their rest defense to hold up under the pressure. So that's where I'm at on this one. Before we go to the other semifinal, where we got a pretty shocking first leg result, a reminder that Wondergoal is presented by Bet365, and Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boosts with them than with anyone else. Every day, they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays. And they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boosts and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Disclaimer, you must be 21 or older and present in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Iowa, Louisiana, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, or 18 and older in Kentucky. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms, conditions, and restrictions apply. Okay, so I think we both had PSG team total on Wednesday in the first leg in the Yellow Wall. Shout out Jamie Carragher for some incredible content of him getting drunk in the Yellow Wall with the Dortmund fans. I particularly enjoyed that. But PSG, after a pretty lackluster first half where it never felt like they were going to score, spent the entire second half peppering the Dortmund goal. And I feel like they've hit the post in the time it took me to promo this game. So 2 posts, 2 free headers from inside the 6-yard box, over 2 expected goals. They finish with nothing. They lose 1-0 at home. And I thought, hey, the market has liked this Dortmund team more than I thought. Maybe we'll get a good number coming back against them in the second leg. That is not to be the case because PSG is a massive home favorite here, not just to win the match outright, minus 200, Dortmund plus 550 on the road, but they are still a pretty solid favorite to advance to the final rather, despite being down that goal. They are minus 150 at Bet365, Dortmund plus 110. BJ, Dortmund has played 11 matches in this Champions League. They've either tied or lost the XG in 9 of them. That is a historic run. Gregor Kobel's been great. They've benefited from some finishing variance that's gone their way. I do think, we're going to spend a lot of time probably bashing Dortmund. We should credit them for how effective Jadon Sancho was, how much they were able to get at PSG. They had numerous chances themselves. So before we, get into this, how concerned are you about PSG defensively going into the second leg?
A little bit. I mean, the goal they gave up was a pretty simple ball over the top, and the way that this leg sets up, it allows Dortmund to do what they do best. And I thought in the first leg, if you look at how those big chances that came off the post and everything were created, Dortmund really learned from their previous two encounters with PSG of what not to do, right? Like they did improve on the fact of like, okay, PSG just burned us in transition time and time again. Let's not let them do that. So they ended up sitting a little bit deeper. They pressed high sometimes, but if they did get beat or the PSG got through the first line of pressure, they were hightailing it back to make sure they had numbers back there. And now they're going to be in a situation where when Dortmund's at their best, it's playing a mid type of block and playing in transition, right? Like all of their players are really designed to play in transition. They have built out of the back a little bit, and I just don't see a scenario where they're going to really come out of that defensive block or really try to be essentially like they usually are in the Bundesliga. They also really did a outstanding job of utilizing Jadon Sancho to his best possible ability. They dropped him deep in build-up many times, 34 touches for him in the middle third of the pitch. That was the second most on Dortmund, just showing how much they utilized him in build-up. And now it's not only him, but Julian Brandt is also a player that's in kind of the same mold as Jadon Sancho. He's somebody that drops deep, somebody can be more of an attacking prowess, and they used him more as an attacking guy, and he ends up, creating a bunch of chances there for Dortmund. I mean, Fulkrug had a simple cross that he could have put in. It could have made Dortmund 2-0. So where I've kind of landed on this, like you said, like I was getting ready to fade Dortmund again. Like they still have like very clear flaws. But if you're somebody that's holding like a PSG 16-1 ticket, I don't know how you don't throw a half unit on Dortmund at 7-1 to win the Champions League. Like I get they suck, and I get that they've been on this historic run, but I mean that price with a 1-goal advantage is kind of crazy to me, honestly. In my opinion, with them being only plus 110 to advance, then you can obviously hedge them in the final and hope they luck box one more. But
they're still going to be 3-1 in the final.
That's true.
Like they should be lined way larger than. Inter was plus 300 to lift the trophy, if I recall correctly, last year. That Inter team got way more market respect than this Dortmund team did. So you're still looking at a pretty tough one in the final. I mean, Real Madrid and Bayern are both minus 200 against Dortmund in a final. Money line.
Yeah, I mean, yes, they are. But, I mean, you still have a chance, obviously, to, because, like, we're talking about, risk averse here, right? Like, if somebody has PSG 16-1, you can let it ride. But again, I think that this price is just a little bit out of line. I know Dortmund's been running really good, but I think that this matchup actually sets up pretty well for them, given what they were able to do in the first leg. And even when they were sitting in that low defensive block, I know they gave up a couple free headers, but like you said, for the first half, PSG didn't really do anything. And they kind of isolated Mbappe at times. If you go look at the pass map, Mbappe kind of struggled to get the ball until the second half, and they were just kind of living with Dembele having the ball on the right side of the pitch. And they did a decent job of defending it. So, I mean, it wouldn't shock me if they got a result and went through here. So, I'm still debating whether I'm actually going to take them at 7-1. I might, or I might just let it happen. But I don't actually have a bet on this game. I think the price on PSG is too high, but I don't really want to lay Dortmund.
I'm trying to find the BTTS over 2.5. Yeah, minus 120. The Debundo special. I think I'm going to bet that. I really don't trust either defense. And it's kind of both teams play all right, let's just pretend we have the ball offense and defensive approach, because neither team has ball winners. And, it was funny, the commentary leading into the first leg, wow, Luis Enrique really put out a midfield that suggests he's going to go for it. And from a tactical perspective, they didn't really get much in terms of chances, but it was a pretty open first half, even though there weren't a ton of chances. This match ended with 63 total first half touches in the penalty, total touches in the penalty area for the two teams combined. And I think it's kind of similar to PSG Barca. I know there end up being goals in that, but the first leg of Dortmund PSG wasn't that different from the first leg of PSG Barca. Essentially, there were just more better finishes, and thus there were more goals. But if teams took their chances better, this easily could have been a 2-2. So I think both teams score over 2.5. You think, hey, PSG from the jump has to push, and their out of possession defense remains their biggest weakness, and so does Dortmund's. And so, how good is Dortmund going to be able to hold up on the road defensively when PSG is applying a ton of pressure? I don't think too well. And I actually thought Mbappe was very quiet in the first matchup. I know he hit the post in that early sequence in the second half, but overall, I didn't think he had a huge, great game. And I mean, we said this ahead of the second leg against Barca. You can have a good plan against Mbappe. He only had 7 touches. He took 3 total shots, hit the post. All 3 of his shots were pretty low quality chances. But what happens if they move him out wide and then isolate him on the fullbacks and they play a striker centrally, like Colomwani starts instead of Barcola? Like, that would be really interesting to me. I would love to see that because I think they would torch Dortmund on the wings and then get a ton of good, dangerous low block or low entries into the penalty area. So I think PSG unleashes offensively, and I do think Dortmund will consistently be able to get them on the break, even if PSG wins this match. So I'm going to go both teams to score over 2.5, -120, the square play of the Debundo special, just to have some action. And yeah, hopefully PSG can get our ticket to the final, our preseason. I think, but you've got Real Madrid, right?
From preseason? Yeah, I've got a Real Madrid 12-1 ticket because I thought that this. Yeah, I thought this guy that's playing for PSG was already going to be at Real Madrid, according to the reports. I think I made that bet like 24 hours after the last Champions League final was over. So I'm just going to ride that ticket. And then I also have a PSG plus 275 as well. That still debating whether I'm going to put some money on Dortmund or not.
Nah,
but I will say one thing.
Can't see Dortmund winning the final.
Well, I will say one thing. The only thing that I want from this, and money aside, is that I would like to see the funniest possible thing happen, which is Bayern and Dortmund meet in the final and have Dortmund win just right in Harry Kane's face. That would be really funny. I would like that a lot.
Yeah, I was with a German fan. We watched the first leg together. Random guy I met at a bar, and Martin from Hanover, and he was rooting for the Bayern. He's a Bayern fan, but rooting for the Bayern Dortmund final because 1, Harry Kane needs a trophy, and 2, he just wants to punish Dortmund more, is what he told me. So, Dortmund, who will luck box their way to the Champions League by way of this new expanded Champions League, because they're going to finish 5th in Germany, will be back next season in the Champions League. As
it's very Sevilla-esque.
Sevilla-esque, yes.
Yeah.
All right, so that's the Champions League. We have 2 ties that are far from decided. Europa League, we've got one that's pretty much over. Leverkusen took care of Roma. They beat them 2-0, pretty much dominated every phase of that match. Lukaku hit the crossbar early. Probably needed that one to go in to have any chance, because after that, it was one-way traffic. Leverkusen got the late goal to go up 2 to essentially put that one to bed. They're coming home. Any interest in Roma in this Europa League tie? I mean, no. I think they kind of shift their focus to the league. They played a very strong attacking team with Lukaku and Dybala against Juventus today. It's a short turnaround for them now, with the sandwich. Leverkusen's like celebrating in Germany and still not losing any matches. So any interest in Roma? I bet them the first leg. I really don't want to do it again.
I mean, the price. So this is like very eerily similar to what Leverkusen had in the quarterfinals. They were playing West Ham. They went up 2-0, and then they were laying a huge number, and they kind of sleepwalked through the match, kept their unbeaten streak alive, and that was that. Yeah, I just have absolutely no interest. They had, like you said, they had a great game plan. They were essentially cutting off all of the lanes where Roma usually do all of their direct attacks. They were doing their normal box midfield 3-man combinations and just playing right through Roma's low block. So yeah, no interest. I'm just tired of, I'm just not really going to stick my neck out against this Leverkusen team. Just let them keep trucking people.
We're going to win the Europa League or
I
come
hope
second
so.
to Atalanta. Yeah, I mean, so, you go back to the first leg. The first goal comes off of a mistake, right? The right back makes a huge error, back pass error. Karsdorp basically hands them a goal. From that point, Roma had already missed the big chance off the post. And, you felt like, hey, maybe, they're not out of this. But once they went down 1-0, you kind of expect a response, and it just never came. I mean, Leverkusen almost played better once they had the lead. And this was in Rome, right? You mentioned that last round against West Ham. That was in East London, and this one's at home. So you do expect Leverkusen to give a better response or a better performance than they did in that match. And like you said, they're not really – this is everything now for them. So they might as well play their strongest team. Boniface, has been in and out of starting. He scored a pen today against Frankfurt. I do expect him to start. Like you said, I do think the number's high. I think the way to play this is probably the Roma team totals because I do think their attack will be live, but I want no real part of Roma having to press forward for goals and Leverkusen being as good as they are in those transition wide areas and just kind of exploiting that, especially if Boniface is in there, which I think he may start. So, no bet for me in this one. The total is also a little bit higher than I'd make it, but given that Roma is pushing here for goals and has to go for it, so to speak, that probably worth a quarter to a half a goal to the spread, to the total alone. So, no interest in this one for me. Marseille Atalanta, the second Europa League quarter semifinal, played out to a 1-1 draw in Marseille last weekend. Atalanta took the lead early, then they were pegged back. Both teams had chances to win it late, and now Atalanta took a ton of money. They were minus 110 on the three-way money line. They've been bet up to minus 134 at Bet365. Atalanta minus 275 to advance. By the way, Roma 18-1 to go through if you're interested in that. Marseille plus 200. This is one where if you're not invested in Atalanta, I like them at home and I would lay it. I am not going to expose myself more on the future, which I think they're going to be plus 250 in the final against Leverkusen. But I do think anything up to minus 140 is good on Atalanta. I think as this venue shifts, they have considerable advantages. So I'm going to roll with them. But BJ, I'm curious. You bet Atalanta in the first leg, and now
I honestly don't really have much of an opinion on this one. The first leg was pretty even. I thought it was interesting that Marseille went with a back five. They haven't done that in a while. They've kind of transitioned to a 3-5-2, but they went straight 5-3-2 against Atalanta. They obviously gave up the goal to Scamacca, but the issue with backing Atalanta at this big of a number is that Marseille has guys that can hurt you in transition, and that's what they're trying to play now. They're no longer under the Gattuso game plan of like, we're going to control possession, we're going to press from the front. They're under Gasset, who is a very more averse to controlling possession and actually wanting to be more direct. And they have the pace and ability to be able to do that. And I think that's kind of what you saw in the first leg as well. Not much really happened. Both teams created under one expected goal. It should be a very tight encounter. I'm sure both teams will come out, not really pressing or really, trying to put the onus on the. Basically, I think Marseille will be trying to put the onus on Atalanta to control possession and try to break them down, as opposed to the flip side of it. So, generally think the price on Atalanta might be just a tad too high to play, but I really have just no interest in either side here. I think it's priced appropriately, and we'll see if Atalanta can get through to the final.
Fingers crossed. All right, Conference League was wild, absolutely wild on Thursday. We'll get to this quickly before we head out and we start to prepare for the penultimate weekend of the Prem. the first match, which, I liked Olympiacos and I bet them, but I did not think they would be able to win outright in Villa. But it was really interesting because Villa plays this Thursday match at home. Then they go to Brighton. They don't really rotate at all. They look dead. I mean, dead this morning.
They got
against
worked.
Brighton. Got smoked in a loss, 1-0 loss. Created, I think, 0.1 XG. It was really bad.
2 shots, I think.
2 shots, yeah. So really rough from them. Now, this is the power of the market here. And I want to kind of emphasize this for future seasons as we get into this. As soon as the first legs end in any tie, you will see the market put up numbers for second legs pretty quickly. And especially, we love our sponsor Bet365. They do a poor job sometimes of correctly lining these games, because Aston Villa opened minus 155 on the road after opening -2 or closing minus 210 at home, losing the game by 2 goals outright. If you just flip home field from minus 210 down, it gets you to like even money. Now their minus 150 was the opener. It didn't last very long because Villa's been bet down to, you guessed it, minus 106 on the money line. Olympiacos plus 250 at home. The fatigue factor here, consecutive away matches, traveling to Greece, the quick turnaround. Villa does not have a ton of squad depth, and we've seen that when they've had to go into it, it has not been pretty. They lose Morgan Rogers to injury today too, who's been like a nice young spark plug for them. And I think it's Olympiacos or nothing again at home, catching the half. It's kind of not too different from what Liverpool just did to Atalanta, where they got pretty handled at home. And the market just expected them to go to Atalanta and truck them. I don't really see it. And the way Villa's been defending, they give up almost 3 XG to a Brighton team that hasn't scored a goal in a month today. The way they've been defending has been shocking. Olympiacos will be happy to play on the break. And they're alive here. So I think Olympiacos is still good again for a second leg bet. And on the other matchup, heartbreak for Bruges plus a half. They opened in this one as a dog somehow. And they have been bet now to the modest favorite. Pick them minus 113, plus 155 on the 3-way money line. I bet Bruges in the first leg. They were pretty well outplayed before the red card. But I'm going to bet them here at home. It's a pick 'em down a goal. For me, this is, somewhat similar to what Villa did against Lille, where, they were up a goal going on the road. And I still have not really a ton of faith in this Fiorentina team. Like, you watch them week in and week out in the league, and they don't really impress. Their metrics are very average. And so I'm going to back Bruges as a pick 'em. So sound like a broken record. I wasn't on last week's pod, but we're rolling with Olympiacos and Bruges. I think Bruges is live to turn this tie around, but I already have some to advance. So I'm just going to take some pick 'em minus 115 or better on Bruges. It's a fairy tale town, isn't it?
I believe so. Yeah. The Olympiacos match. So Olympiacos is kind of in a weird spot. They're on their third manager, Mendelebar, who, if you remember, took Sevilla to win the Europa League last year.
Oh, do I?
Is now guiding Olympiacos through the Europa Conference Leagues. Maybe this guy's just like the best tournament coach of all time.
He's replacing Emery as the tournament czar.
Exactly. He's met his match. But Olympiacos is a team that is much better when they don't have the ball. They like to press high. They like to play very direct. And that is the worst possible matchup that Aston Villa can have, because they obviously are very prone to giving up the ball in their own final third. So a team that's ready to play direct like that is a really good matchup. So I agree with you. If, I'm probably not going to play Olympiacos. I'll probably just let it go and see what happens. But yeah, Aston Villa doesn't look good. Maybe if Tottenham showed any life, they actually maybe could have gotten top 4, because Aston Villa looks kind of dead right now.
We'll touch on that before we head out.
But I like Bruges to advance. You can find it high as plus 265 right now. So the story of Fiorentina and why myself and Anthony, why we just keep fading this team, is not only just because they have not great underlying metrics overall for the season, but the way that they play. They have some of the best build-up numbers, pass completion rate numbers, final third entries. Like, it's all so good, and it makes it look like they're completely dominating a match. But whenever they get to the final third, everything just starts to fall apart. They settle for shots outside the box. They settle for low-quality chances. You look at their first 2 goals against Bruges. One came off a screamer, a fading away screamer that had an XG rating of 0.02. The second goal deflects right to Belotti, and he just slots it right in the corner. XG rating of 0.09 on that shot. And then obviously Bruges got the penalty, and they created one other big chance. And then they go up a man, and immediately what happens is Bruges comes right back and ties it up 2-2. And then Fiorentina just proceeded to, obviously playing up a man, just proceeded to pepper the Bruges goal over and over again. But again, didn't create a big scoring chance until they finally got the third goal. In the end, yes, they did have 2.2 expected goals. And yes, Bruges did have a penalty early in the match. But up until the point of the red card, Bruges had more expected goals off of 3 shots than Fiorentina did off of their 14, which just kind of highlights what they are like as a team. And they're not a good team in transition as well. 19th in Serie A in final third box entry conversion rates. So Thiago, who scored the second goal, is going to be playing at Brentford next year, which is going to be a little pretty fun. But Bruges has the guys to be able to play in transition, because Fiorentina, the way they play, I don't see them just coming out and sitting in some type of defensive block and handing the ball and saying, here, Bruges, you can have the ball. They're going to try to control things. That's how they play. So I think that we're going to see a very similar game plan. And now this is in Belgium, and they have the guys to be able to exploit them. So Bruges to advance plus 265. And if you're not on Bruges 7-1 to win the Conference League, that number is still out there. And I would bet it if you haven't already.
It's so funny because last year, I don't know if you did, but I know I of course had Fiorentina to win this tournament, and I found myself betting them a lot because the market didn't really like them. They had these really good metrics. You talked about it. The box-to-box stuff was really good for Fiorentina, and then they ran bad at times. And I thought, the really good box-to-box stuff would eventually translate into better output in terms of XG and then goals and wins. And, they make the final, they lose to West Ham. The West Ham loss was kind of a perfect encapsulation of what is wrong with the Italiano system. I like him. I think he's a great manager, but they give away enough big scoring chances when their team gets broken that they tend to be vulnerable in this kind of situation. And you saw it, the second goal, Bruges score. They're up a man. Fiorentina's up a man, up a goal, and I had written off the bet. And then all of a sudden, it's 2-2 because Bruges broke through and got in behind and scored. And I think that's kind of just the flaw. And now that Fiorentina is getting more market respect this year, they did lose a lot of their goal scoring production and attacking talent. And that, I think, ultimately, they're like 1 or 2 players away from making a top 4 challenge, but they are short right now. And thus, they're a team to sell. They're a team, and they remind me a little bit of like the Stuttgart pre-Seru Girassi insanity season, where they had the really good numbers and they just kept finding ways to not get results. Where if they can find 1 or 2 like dynamic attackers who are young, get them in early, and really like have them pop off, combine that with the good midfield, and you'd have a really good team. But they're not quite there. I think they're probably, we'll see what they do in the summer, but not sure.
You know what they remind me of? They kind of remind me of the Lopetegui Wolves teams.
Yes.
That just like put a premium on defensive or their own final third or possession, building out that way. Although Wolves didn't, they're playing in the Premier League versus Fiorentina playing in Serie A where nobody presses. So it's a lot easier to build out when teams are just sitting in low defensive blocks. But it feels very eerily similar to that just because of how many shots they're taking from outside the box. So, yeah. But no, I agree. Like this is just a great betting opportunity on Bruges, quite frankly. And Bruges. We could. Yeah. I mean,
Fiorentina was so anti-Bruges last year.
I know.
They've taken a real step forward this year.
They have. And that match, so the funny part about Bruges is they were playing really well this season. They parted ways with their manager. They've been on a caretaker manager since about the middle of March, and that loss to Fiorentina is the only time that they've lost. So they're on a good run. And obviously Belgium is going through their playoffs right now. They're if somebody can figure out how those work, please message me, because I've heard people in Belgium don't even understand how it works. But yeah, no, they're a very good team with a lot of good young attacking talent that should be able to give Fiorentina a lot of problems in transition.
All right, so Bruges, Olympiacos again. We'll run it back. We like goals in PSG Dortmund, I think, and we have no idea what to expect in the Europa League. We're kind of just passing those and hoping we can get our Atalanta to the window. So that will do it for this episode of Wondergoal. Before we do go, though, BJ, on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that Tottenham will get a result against City? Because it looks like the league title is going to come down to that match next Tuesday.
Who's to say Fulham doesn't get a result?
I don't think Fulham's getting a result.
5.
I kind of wish Tottenham played first because it would have been even funnier if Tottenham got the result against City and then United
No, it's not going to happen.
Hilarious
no,
box.
no.
And what is the line on United Arsenal? I have not looked. But I guess it first.
Okay, let's play Bill Simmons guess the line here.
Okay.
What do you think Arsenal's money line is right now?
So Liverpool closed minus 155, right? And we thought that was a little high. So I'm going to say Arsenal, they'll must-win tax them a little bit. So we'll go Arsenal minus 185.
You're going to be betting United because Arsenal's minus 220 right now.
No way. So they're going a quarter. Going a quarter. Oh, my God.
United is going to have no available center backs.
Well, Johnny Evans should be back
by
then.
That's true.
Yep.
So one available center back alongside Casemiro.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be betting Arsenal, but I'm just going to watch them win 4-2.
And then so City is at Fulham. So City's probably laying minus 350.
It's actually much higher than minus 350. They're minus 440 at Fulham, which is crazy. And there is a line for City Tottenham right now.
Really?
There is. Would you like to guess that line?
City is minus 145.
Oh boy. They're minus 230.
Minus 230?
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to lose a lot of money in the next 2 weeks betting against the City and Arsenal team.
And United's a favorite against Newcastle as well.
So Arsenal closed minus 140 at Spurs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now City's minus 225.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fun one. I love these end of season numbers, and sometimes you look like an idiot. I mean, sometimes you bet Wolves plus 2.5, and you're like, oh, we're down 3-0 in 10 minutes. And other times you look like a genius. So that's the fun of the must-win tax. Cannot believe City's minus 225 at Tottenham, and Arsenal is minus 225 at United. Which one's more shocking? In hindsight, honestly, the Tottenham line is kind of more shocking.
Yeah, the City Tottenham line is way more shocking.
I know everybody thinks Tottenham sucks now, but they're pretty much the same team they've always been. So that will do it for this episode of Wondergoal. We will be back on Thursday morning to discuss the penultimate weekend of the Premier League season, the title race, the relegation picture, which is becoming clearer by the day, our top 10 tickets that we're sweating out, and more. Lieboff hopefully will be back Thursday. I think he will. And thank you for joining us. Thank you to Noah, our producer. Thanks to Bet365, and thanks to everyone who listens, subscribes, likes, dislikes, calls us out on Twitter. We appreciate all of you, and have a great day.